Direct from Foxborough, Massachusetts, the gem of Norfolk County, and taped at the studios of Foxborough Cable Access. It's Foxborough Central. And here's your host, Bob Hickey.
And welcome to another episode of Foxborough Central. I'm Bob Hickey, your host, thanking you for taking a little bit of time to join with me and my guests as we talk about the people, events, and organizations that make Foxborough truly the gem of Norfolk County. Part of any great town is its government, and government is made up of people, volunteers, and paid professionals who make the wheels turn and hopefully take us tomorrow in a better place than we were yesterday. So to that end, I'm very pleased to be able to bring you my continuing series on government in the news. It is that time of year when snow flies and people get excited about special town meeting. That's right. Special town meeting is what we all get excited about. And I'm joined by my guest, Bill Keegan, who is our town manager.
Nice to see you, Bob.
It's great to see you. Jim DeVellis, our chairman of our Board of Selectmen, and Bill Yuckna, who is the chairman of the
Building Committee.
Nice abbreviated version.
I'm not even going to try it. He is also our finance director for the school department. So I'm sitting with some people who are in the know. And what do we want to know about tonight? Specifically, something that I've been following for a long time, as have you. First of all, special town meeting is coming up. For those of you who don't know, don't get your Foxborough reporter, or just don't pay attention, here to help you out and remind you that on Tuesday night, February 23rd, starting at 7:30 at the Foxborough High School Auditorium, there is a special town meeting. There's plenty of room. Everybody's invited, and hopefully you show up because there's some very important warrant articles on the docket. One of the most ones, at least that I've been following over the years, is the town hall. As you may or may not remember, I used to be a member of our Board of Selectmen. Of course, I gave way to smarter and happier people like Jim DeVellis.
Too kind.
Too true. But to that end, I remember back when I was a selectman, I'll say partly cramped quarters and part of the issues that were afflicting the folks who are working in town hall, the lack of air conditioning in the summer, the odd way the heat was distributed in the winter, the basement conditions. There used to be a shooting range. We had to do mitigation in the attic for lead and dust. There are also issues with windows. People remember former town manager Kevin Pecos speaking eloquently about how the water would come in. And of course, who can forget many of the nights where we've actually had selectmen's meetings when the power goes out because of the antiquated electrical system. Part of the problem was solved when the police department was able to get extricated and move on to the modern public safety building, which Bill Yuckna, of course, I worked with back then. He had a leadership role. I was just happy to support. A lot of work went into the public safety building, and a lot of the issues that were the genesis of the reason why they had to leave are really the genesis, or maybe that's the wrong word, but really the push factor as to why we need to do something now. Right, Bill?
Absolutely. I think big issues, quite honestly, as you kind of highlighted, the conditions of the building. We've had some serious infiltration of water with walls crumbling, and obviously making working conditions that aren't the greatest. People have walked in Monday morning after a rainstorm and had to mop up the floors and dry out the files. We've had serious problems in the basement area with water coming in, but all of that are different issues that we face. But the other side of it is the modernization issue that we basically are dealing with now with new technologies that have to be in buildings, the ADA requirements, the energy efficiency requirements. All of those, as we did with the joint public safety and the library, are very key to any successful building.
Now, in the public safety, and I like to think that everything happens for a reason, and so if you home will bear with me as I go down my little memory lane. I remember the public safety building, the initial proposal came through, and it was well thought out, but there were some questions. And then the second proposal came out, and it was a modification, and the questions were fewer, but maybe more pointed. And so as the maturing process happened, it came to what I believe is a phenomenal public safety building that has the size, scope, and really the ability to grow with the community, but also grow with technology, grow with the machinery, the physical vehicles that are used. the technology of the police department and how they deal with situations. It goes a long way from the old days where people were handcuffed to the railing in the garage unit. Right. And then, also room for the future in case we do create a regionalized dispatching service. We actually have a facility that could accommodate with minimal work, if I'm not incorrect, because it's been 10 years, but it has the ability to expand and be a home to that. So a lot of work went into the public safety building, and your leadership was key, of course, with making sure that the information was disseminated, vetted, and the best solutions were created. Not everybody was happy. Not everybody is always ever going to be happy. Always ever, that is a word or a phrase. But let's talk about Town Hall as to where we've been, because you can certainly get into this, Jim, because you've been part of this for the last, how many years have you been selectman? 9, 12,
no,
20?
Going on 6.
6.
Yeah, and this is a topic that predates me and predates your era on the
Right.
as a selectman, and it's one of those projects that this isn't the first time it's come up. So it gets to a certain point, and whether it's need for space and the items that Bill was talking about, or the rain or handicapped accessibility, it gets to a certain point, and another project comes along, and rightfully so. You get the library, which got some grant money. Some of the school projects where you have, pennies on the dollar that you have to pay because you get state aid. Town Hall never enjoyed that benefit. So it got to a certain point, and then it got pulled back to let the library, the school project, or the public safety. And over time, it just kept getting worse and worse. And it's a place where, it's the front door of the town. Our professional offices are there. You've got planning, Board of Health, conservation, our professional staff, administration. And code-wise, square footage per person, bathroom facilities, hallways. You go in the basement, they still have the bars from the old police, to the point where people are eating lunch in their cars because there's just no adequate space. So it's come up and it's come down, and now, one of the first tasks that Bill Keegan, our new town manager, had is to look at kind of the process of where we are. We've tried it. And it's one of those projects where people just don't fall in love with, where they don't see a big benefit. So we kind of had to convince the people of the town that there is a benefit, because this is what we're all about. This is how we run our business. So over the last year, we've kind of taken on the road with planning board and design reviews, and it's got its fair share and then some of publicity in the newspaper. Some fair, some unfair, but we vetted it pretty hard over the year, and I think asked, answered, had meetings, public meetings, to the point where this is a very unique project because it's been pushed so far in every corner for value engineering. People wanted to know exactly how much it's going to cost before they vote for it. So the town at the last town meeting said,
Right.
All right, here's the money, design it, do construction documents, get real bids in hand, and then bring it to us for a vote. And that's kind of where we are heading
And that's
into
where
February.
we're at now.
Yeah.
And you raised an excellent point about time. And I remember back in the day with Jeff Lovely in the library, it wasn't time because there were other needs. The Ahern School needed to be renovated, and that was more of a priority. And then we had the public safety building. Then it was time for the library, and the community rallied and voted in favor of it. And now we have the beautiful addition on the Boyden. The same thing happened with the schools. The high school renovation was a priority, but then the state ran into issues, and Treasurer Cale said, we need to pull it back because the funding isn't there. And we as a town decided, okay, we all understand that we can get a much bigger bang for the buck if we get a 60% reimbursement as opposed to a 0% reimbursement. So the time was to take that, and then when it came back, we as a town voted in favor of it. So now it does seem to be time for the town hall. So, Mr. Keegan, you have the corner office, and you're the one who has to deal with this on a daily basis, whereas the rest of us just have to, touch it on occasion or when it becomes an inconvenience, such as I feel so badly for you, and also for you with the Board of Selectmen's meetings having to be held at the high school. It's a very, not only is it inconvenient, but it just makes little sense how a mature community such as ours has to go meet in a room for our main venue of business. It just it's time.
Right. It really is time. It's when I first arrived here, it was in fact, it was some of the selectmen. In fact, I think Jim was one of them, who said, "Are you sure you know what you're getting yourself into here? You know, but come by and see the town hall and make sure you really want to come here before you commit to doing this job." And I said, I'm really committed to doing it, and I actually found it to be a challenge in many ways, because it's gone through a really thorough vetting process over the years, to the point where I think we're ready to really go forward with this. So I think the design that's been put forward, the building committee has done a tremendous job. The work that was done up to that, prior to that, was to really identify the problems and the obstacles that we had to overcome in order to get to where we are today. So I think we've done that, and I think that now the process is just that let's put the shovel in the ground and get it done. Obviously, we got to go to town meeting and get the folks to wrap their arms around it as well. I hope that they will, because the work that's been done has been really, really well done. It's the design. We listened to what the public wanted. They wanted a colonial design. We gave them a colonial design. We gave them a building that was functional but not overly stated. It's a building that really meets the needs of government today and tomorrow. It includes all the latest technology that really is needed to run government in a modern fashion today. And furthermore, it provides a professional working environment that is needed for government, because Jim said it right. The chairman is correct, that we are the front door of government here in the community. And I think that we've got a lot to be proud of here. And whether you look at the history, all the things that go on in this community, we have a lot of things to be proud of. And I think that when people walk in our door, that should be reflected in the building that we work from. The government here is really well run, not just because it's me or anyone else that any one person. It's collectively the boards, the committees, the employees. Everybody works together in a very cohesive fashion. I think that the time has come for us to have a building that reflects that as well.
Okay, very good. So to that end, and of course I'm here speaking with Bill Keegan, Jim DeVellis, and Bill Yukna, who are the three leaders of the various parts of the town government that are going to be putting this project forward. And to that end, I can think of no better three spokesmen to be here to talk about how we got to this point. So you had mentioned that it's a colonial in appearance, and it's hard to imagine a major office building looking colonial, but it does happen, and we have it here in town. The building on Mechanic Street has that type of appearance, and so it certainly is fitting in. And I've seen the pictures, and hopefully you're seeing the picture now. It'll be on the screen. And these are pictures and documents that have been put together by your committee, Bill?
Yes, there's actually a team. LLB, Learn Lads, and Bartel are the architectural firm that we hired. Vertex Companies is the OPM that was hired by the town as well. The building committee, as well as town administration, as an overall group, which is consistent with the way we've done our other projects. We've always had, whether it was the library, joint public safety, we've always had groups from the department that was going to use the building work with us hand in hand in order to make sure we got the best end product, because I think the point that the building committee has made over the years is that we don't live in the buildings in the end. Our job is very clear, is to design it, construct it, and turn it over. But in the end, if we do something that really doesn't work or doesn't make sense, that's not appropriate. The joint public safety building, quite honestly, we had police and fire both on our committee at the time.
That's a great example, and you're absolutely correct.
And to your point originally, the technology in that building, quite honestly, there was no way even the building committee could have thought of half the things that they were thinking about in the needs. So I think when you look at that, the library trustees, we sat side by side with them through the process. They owned it. They knew what they wanted. They knew what they needed, and we just had to get it over the goal for them. So I look at the town hall as the same exact thing. We've worked very closely with the selectmen, with the town administration. Every department head has had say on this, all the way up to this very last design that's finally out to bid, tweaking whether it's service counters. Hallway space, everything, quite honestly, they've had input on. So I think it's very important that the taxpayers realize this is not something the building committee just designs. It's really something that we design based on the needs and the use.
Right. So Jim, If this goes through town meeting, what is the next step?
If you remember, a lot of the discussion was new, renovated, different site, move. So part of this development is eventually the existing town hall will get knocked down, but the way it's been designed, the new town hall will be within the parking lot of the existing.
Okay.
So that can go forward full construction.
Essentially where the old center school, or where the old center.
Yeah,
right.
it's similar where you do your Christmas trees for the scouts up
Right.
in that area.
Right.
Okay, so you
But
should
we
be
won't have to move the Payne School again, will we?
No,
that's
no.
Okay, all right, that's
We'll
key.
keep it there.
No, and that's a good point, because that area there, Bay Colony did the site plan, so they looked at, not only the parking lot for it, but the site amenities, flagpoles, turning outside seating areas. So that whole area is going to be part of the town hall complex.
Very interesting that the town hall, the 1800s town hall, is going to be essentially the same location as
Yeah.
the 2000s town hall.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's old as new again, dear old
Yeah,
Foxborough.
that's right.
So worked into the budget, the staff and the business will go on in the existing town hall. The new one will be constructed. Staff and business will move into the new town hall, and then the old town hall will be demolished and a parking lot and the site amenities would go in.
Okay.
So it sounds like a complicated, but it's probably the simplest way to do it.
It was actually one of the more important features in planning for the new building was that we were able to utilize the existing structure to minimize the impact on the employees as well as the public, because the public is still used to coming to that building. The business will continue to go on. Parking will be a little challenging at times. We understand that, but we're going to figure that into the process. We've already come up with some plans as to how to address that with our employees. So I think we'll be in good shape in making sure that the building and the business of the town will continue to go on while the construction is going on.
And I think one of the points that were made time and time again back when this discussion was going on, I think it was 18 months ago or 2 years ago, was a desire to keep the town hall in the center of
Correct.
town. And even though we've experienced some phenomenal growth and real positive change, particularly with Chestnut Green coming online, the opportunities up there, and a huge development of residences and recreation and business up on the North Street end of our town. Really, whether it's emotional or just, it's true that this is the center of town. It's where our common is. It's where we, in long-term range, and hopefully, knock on wood if it doesn't bother the microphones too much, with the introduction of additional sewage capacity, a revitalization or rebirth of our downtown district. Having that town hall and the business that it generates, and also just the feel of, okay, this is Foxborough, this is where we do business. That was so important. So congratulations on being able to do that and figure out a way to keep it in the center of town.
Well, it was a point of debate. The subcommittee, the working group that we worked with in the initial stage, vetted that issue very carefully, and it really came down to really two choices: either the center of town or Chestnut Green, and there was a pretty strong sentiment amongst the community that the historic center of town should be maintained and that the town hall should remain as part of it. So, we're not going to argue with that. I mean, if that's what the community really wants, then that's what we should do.
And that continuity, I think, is when you get right down to brass tacks, that continuity is what people are hoping for. So, Bill, you mentioned the working committee. Can you share a little bit about the process that was gone through, public input, the whole 9 yards?
Yeah, as Bill said, the initial working group was a group that Bill brought together, made up of community members. I was the only one representing the building committee at the time, but it did have a good cross section.
So it wasn't made up of the building committee?
No.
for the
Not
most
the
part.
initial portion, not when the first review of this was done. And again, I think that was to try to build consensus on the different issues that were out there. Where was the building going to be placed? What was the needs for the building itself? Could we do it on the same site? All these different things.
Renovate versus new.
Exactly.
All those major
And
issues that were impediments.
I think that group had 12 members on it, if I remember correctly. And so once that was done, and we went to town meeting just about a year ago, actually, just over a year ago. We went with an estimate of how many square feet we thought we could get this building into, and what the cost estimate would be, just based on just conceptual information that we had. Obviously, we had no designs, we had no specifications, we had really nothing on the building. But it was also to go into to do a different concept too, and that concept was basically to say, well, if instead of doing it the old way where you give us X amount of dollars and we see if we can build it, now we're going to actually go out and design it exactly the way everybody wants it to be, and then get a price on it, and you have that option to say at that price time whether or not this is what you're going to move forward with.
And do we have that price?
The price, actually, what we have right now is our third cost estimate, but what we're waiting for is the actual general contractor's bids, and subcontractor bids are coming in.
And that's key to this whole process, because I remember, Jim, back, it seems like we've been doing this forever, but it was
We went to town meeting.
We went to
level
town
and they
meeting,
said
and
they
a
wanted
lot,
real numbers.
and they wanted real numbers, and so I think it was $500,000 was allocated to fund the design and the architectural review and to create a basis to get those. So will those be ready by the special town meeting on February 23rd?
Yeah, as Bill said, it's going out. It's out to bid, and then the contractors. It's advertised. We will get all the bids in, review it, and it's a public bid process, public bid opening, and then we'll be able to go to town meeting saying, contractor A has this budget, this was selected, and should it pass, then the contractor gets notified that town meeting passed it, and we can sign the contract. Town meeting says no, contractor goes on its way, and back to square one.
Okay. And so we're anticipating having competing bids, and forgive me, I've been out of town government for a little bit. So the competing bids comes in, and what happens with those competing bids? So that we know, because here in Foxborough Central, this is being taped, just so you know, in January, and it's only a month away from special town meeting. And so this is real time, but a lot of work is still going into this between this taping and the meeting, because you still have to go through the bid process, reviewing the bids. So let's talk about how the bids will be reviewed and vetted.
So what happens is that there's two bid processes that are going on. Right? One is for subcontractors, the other was for the general contractor. And the subcontractor bids are coming in on the 28th, Bill,
Of January.
January. And then on February 11th is when the general contractor's bids will come in. And so at that point, LLB, our architecture firm, as well as the overall project manager, will be there to evaluate the bids and then make recommendations as to who we should go with. We've had quite a bit of interest in the project. Last week rather, we had a pre-bid conference. We had 7 or 8 contractors present at that meeting. We've had other contractors take interest in it as well. So we fully expect we'll get a lot of interest and a lot of competitive prices for this project.
That's great. And so that'll be real time, and and how are we going to publicize that, Jim, so that way everybody has the information before town meeting? Because as we know, people come to town meeting hoping to have good information.
Sure.
But the danger is always having last minute things pop up. So how are we working to make that not happen?
So if you go to town meeting in February, there's going to be 8 warrant articles. All 8 warrant articles go through what we call the advisory committee. They're a board of autonomous people that are appointed that pick and go through all
town
of the
clerk, yes.
Go through all of the articles. So this one, they're reviewing the pluses and minuses in process. They don't have the final number yet. So I think they're going to make their final recommendation on that number.
Right.
It's been positive up to this point.
Right.
But when we get the numbers, we'll share it with the advisory committee.
Right.
And
So everybody's working together to
Sure.
get this information
Correct.
in front of the voters as early as possible. But I think it's actually, I won't say genius, but it's very smart to have everything happen as a domino happens, because you can't have the bids come in without having a realistic idea of what you can do. But who's going to submit a bid not knowing whether it's actually going to go before town meeting? So you've got everybody in line. So if the stars are aligned and bids come in at something reasonable, and people at town meeting feel as though they're educated enough and that it's a good cost, then this could actually happen.
Oh yeah,
It could really happen.
The process is very open, and because it's a public bid,
Right.
it's open publicly too. So you'll know the contractors will be there. It's a very open and straightforward process.
Now I've got a question, and perhaps you can help me with this. Knowing that the stock market has been going through some gyrations lately, but also knowing that the Fed did increase the prime rate by a quarter of a tick right before the holidays, I would think that now would be soon to be closing of the window where we can continue to enjoy the phenomenal interest rates that we've been receiving for our bonds. I know that Randy Scollins, our town finance director since 2005, is always on the right side of the bell curve when it comes to using his crystal ball and knowing where we want to be 3-5 years. Does he have any thoughts that you've talked to him about as far as the wisdom of doing it now as opposed to waiting?
Well, we think now is as good a time as any. We think that we could hit the timing of this actually pretty well. We're lined up to go out to bond this project as soon as we can, as early as this spring. That way we'll get we'll still be on the right side of that curve. I think there's a little bit of a softening of the interest rates still at this point in time because the economy has slipped a little bit. Yep. So I think this is now as good a time as any to try and get ahead of that and it could actually help our bidding process for that matter as well because of the way things are lining up.
It's interesting. I remember back in 2004, 2005, we had projects and we actually ended up having to rebid the steel contract because China was in such a boom situation that a lot of the raw materials and the core pieces of any construction. This public safety building is a great example. That bid was significant. Now, and again, I don't know when you at home are watching this, but the first week of January was not very generous when it came to the Chinese economy, which is our big competitor right now, no matter how you want to slice it. And then our own local, there were mixed numbers coming out. So you're right, maybe the interest increases are not as dire as once believed, and maybe now is a great time to begin a major large-scale construction project.
Well, we're also, what also should be considered here too is that we just recently had our bond rating evaluation done by Standard & Poor's. They just gave us AA plus rating and with a positive outlook, which is entirely, which is clearly a good indication that we actually may go up in our rating since we've done a lot of positive things to line ourselves up for that consideration. A lot of that work has been done through the finance department, through Randy's work, and a lot of the departments just doing everything that we said we were going to do. That's what S&P likes to see happen, is that when we say we're going to do things, we do them. We've progressively addressed the needs of the town over time. Now is another one of that important pieces of that whole puzzle, what they like to see happen, and I think that this will line up actually pretty well as a nice part of that equation. But I think we really are in a good position to do this project now. One thing's for certain, it's never going to get cheaper. It's unfortunate that it's taken this long, because if we were to do this 5 years ago, it would be significantly less than what we're paying for it even today. But that said, imagine if we continue to put it off for the next 4 to 5 years, what the cost is going to be. So I think now is as good a time as any. Everything has been lined up. This is as far as we've ever gone to with this project in terms of design.
By far.
So I think we're really in a good position to get this thing done, and the excitement level is building too. I think that once everybody gets a good understanding of what this project is going to be, what it's really going to look like, there's a lot of pride at stake here, I think, and I think this is an important piece of the town's overall picture going forward. It really is an important piece.
Well, now does seem to be the time, and so I hope that everybody does their due diligence and really looks into this project. I know that the advisory committee will be coming out with a recommendation. I sincerely hope that everybody comes out to special town meeting on February 23rd. We are so out of time. I'm going to give you the last word, Bill and Jim, but as we do, I'm going to toss a compliment your way that success with the bond rating and success with projects only comes through strong leadership, and so you're going to have to take some credit there, Mr. Keegan, who has come into a situation and really grabbed the proverbial bull by the horns by making us go in the right direction and keeping our eye focused on what the ultimate goal is, which is a professional, functional, and usable for the future and now workplace.
Well, thank you.
So, and then of course with your leadership, Bill, on the I'm not even going to pretend, the permanent municipal building committee. How about that? I got it out.
There you go. That's good. I got it.
So as the chairman, quickly, how do we go?
I just hope the taxpayers realize that the building committee is also made up of taxpayers, and we look at the money we spend as if it's ours as it is, and that we really, we believe in this project at this point. We've done everything that we've been asked to do, and I think we're very comfortable that this is the right project to move forward with. Fantastic.
And of course, Jim, you always get the last word as our leader.
Yeah, and from a selectman's perspective, I mean, we initiated it to bring it forward. Bill in town administration administered the process, which has been night and day over the last year, and Bill's been the rock, very professional. a great history of other municipal projects. And Foxborough is very conservative. We don't bite off more than we can chew. A project finishes, we don't do 2.5 overrides. The bond gets paid off, we start another project. It's good planning. And I guess to end it on what Bill said, I'm a taxpayer, Bill's a taxpayer. You're not a taxpayer in town, but this is your profession.
Right.
Foxborough is blessed to have a lot of volunteers, planning board, advisory committee, all of the people that are reviewing and giving their input on this and the value engineering. So the detriment of holding off because of the interest rates, the benefit is this thing has been designed and reviewed publicly more than any project I've ever worked on. I do it for a living, you do it,
that's right.
and you've been on so many boards. If it doesn't work this time, I think we've got to take a serious look of how we do things.
Just one last word is too, and this is really important, is the fact we are not seeking a debt exclusion for this project. We intend to pay this within our existing revenue stream, our existing bonding capacity within the town. So for those people that say we can't do it because I don't want to see taxes increase, taxes are going to increase anyways because of 2.5. That's the way it works. But it's not going to increase necessarily because of this project. We're not doing a 2.5 over debt exclusion to pay for this project. It's being paid for within the existing revenue stream.
I cannot think of a better way to conclude any discussion about a major construction project than to say there's not going to be an additional override.
Right.
Well, folks, you heard it here first on Foxborough Central. Now what you have to do is educate yourself and make sure that you have the information because you do have the power, as do we, as all taxpayers, make sure that our community is going forward in the right direction. We are so out of time, I can't believe it, but I hope to see you at the special town meeting on Tuesday. Don't forget it's Tuesday, February 23rd, starting at 7:30 at the high school. Until then, folks, have a great day, Foxborough.